Happy Thursday, folks, and welcome to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BetSperts. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. Joining me, as always, in his white BetSperts sweatshirt. I like that. That's a nice little change of pace. That must be a special edition. Well, that's old school, vintage.
I got this.
If you will.
Yeah, I got this at an event a couple of years ago, I believe, back when we could still go to Las Vegas and hang out. So this is my oldest, most treasured BetSperts. Sweatshirt, gear, whatever you want to call it.
But how might the people get themselves a BetSperts sweatshirt if they wanted it?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not that one, but we have others.
That is coming. Yeah, the way better one. This is okay. The other ones are Under Armours. So you definitely want to be getting one of the good ones. And yes, you can get your $1,000 free bet or your $500 free bet, depending which state you register in. And of course, your free hoodie. Make sure to sign up for WinBet. The links are in the description of the podcast and the YouTube video. If you're on YouTube, make sure to give me a thumbs up. Somehow, some way that helps. I don't know why or how with the algorithms, but
it just makes me feel better. I like a thumbs up.
Yeah, it does. So, and good luck to anyone top shotting today. It looks like there's a pack drop today, kind of a spendy one. I think it's like $100 pack. So maybe that'll scare away some of the small fishes and I won't be 80,000th in line. Speaking of basketball, none of my plays won last night. I don't know. The more I think about that, I'd rather have a bunch of 2-1, 2-2 days than have like a 10-1 run and then a 0-3 day. 0-3, especially the way Tulsa ended. I actually paid attention to that because I'm like, I got to get off the schneid. Tulsa can take care of this. So somebody just asked, where's blog, Andy? My Horizon League blog is pretty much done. I'm going to drop it after the show here. So, and yes, Top Shot did delay the drop so they can watch Brown Bag Bets is what we are assuming.
That's what we've heard. Sources say.
Long term, whatever. I had to take a step back and be like, I've had a good week, whatever. I've had a good 10 days. So 0-3 stung. It sucked. Tulane shot like 14 for 69. It was real rough watching any of that. But as a whole, the show did very well. Your basketball plays went 2 out of 3. Your tennis plays went 3 for 3, including
Coco keeps going up, baby.
I don't know what, and not only that, but Coco Gauff advanced, which, you didn't bet on Coco Gauff advancing. No, but it means we can bet another over. Like every time she wins a match, we can just keep betting these overs. I bet the over. I bet the 2.5 over sets. So it was nice to watch that go to a third set. And congratulations on that. Do you have any? And I know the further we get into the week, the fewer matches there are. But what do you? I kind of spoiled it. I didn't even notice what you played. You got any tennis?
We're going back to the well one more time here. I mean, Coco Gauff matches continue to go 3 sets, and I'm going to continue to back it. They finally moved the total here. They've been really nice to us, giving us 20.5 games and 21 games all week. They finally hung the 21.5, which in WTA is kind of the line you don't really pass. In a men's tennis match, 21.5 is actually a great spot for it over. But in women's tennis, you don't ever really want to go over 21.5. About 85% of all tennis matches that go over 21.5 are 3-setters. So with that in mind, I'm more than happy to grab the over 2.5 sets there at plus 145 rather than grab the over 21.5 games. Belinda Bencic is a player that likes to play 3-set matches, but plays short sets. So I would be really nervous here with an over if this goes 2 sets. So let's take the over 3 sets this time. We'll skip the game since they finally have adjusted a little bit, Andy.
I dig it. Yeah, I'll be on that. This is the only thing keeping me afloat this week is Coco Gauff overs. With that, someone did ask about college basketball blogging. I will be blogging. I will be betting all these. And you know what? The NBA goes on too. We're going to talk about our plays with our guest. I'm going to just bring him in. He wrote Masked Singer Expert, even though we are not in Masked Singer season yet. We're getting there. The real Frank Brank. Yes, his name rhymes. Yes, that's his real name. I don't know why, but
we tried to get the fake one, but there doesn't seem to be a fake one.
There's not real Frank Banks. That is a DJ from like Cleveland. This is the real Frank Branks from Elite Sports. He's basketball, hockey, Masked Singer, baseball. He hangs out in his basement a lot doing videos like this. How you doing, Frank?
Hi. Yeah, good to be back with you guys. Hi, Alex. Hi, Andy. Max Singer. March 10th. After I see all the groups, we'll definitely have some bets coming in for you guys. I think that was my most proud moment when we got the winner last year.
Yeah, I
Nice
got it at
birthday
plus
present.
250. I got it at I bet it at 1 and then it moved. Where off of like a $50 bet too. So
And then they
like,
took
by the
it
time I
down, and
bet
you
it,
weren't
and then they
you weren't
took it
allowed to
down.
bet it. You couldn't bet it anymore after Andy bet $50 on the show. It was over.
So if nothing else, Frank has given me at least one winner in my life. It was the son to win the Masked Singer. Who was it? Leanne Rhymes?
It was Leanne Rhymes, yes.
Okay.
Which
So
is
this
like, that's a stacked deck, man. Everyone else in the
tough.
field there just got screwed. It's so unfair. It would be like, it's going to be like Gonzaga's conference tournament. Like, she was minus 30, in a basketball game. It was so unfair for everyone else there.
But she had to wear that big sun costume. That's got to be tough.
They all wear costumes. It's fine.
Yeah, I think anybody who has seen Coyote Ugly would agree with Frank. It was an unfair advantage, but we cashed in, and college basketball is starting to slow down here. What are you? Yeah. I mean, well, what do you do once we get to this point of the season? You get a lot of goofiness, and I think maybe this is. And go back to my blogs again. I've told this story before, but the reason these blogs happen for these conference tournaments is because I had to sit down and do so much goddamn research to figure out, like, where is this team even playing? Is this a host tournament? There's some of these tournaments that are, hey, it's a neutral site, but it happens to be the home court of one of the teams. So it says neutral, but it's actually their home court. There's different reseeding issues. There's things like that. So I ended up just doing so much damn research that I started putting them into blog form. So I guess, what adjustments do you make this time of year? And I mean, the biggest one is just making sure you know what the hell is going on, because there's going to be a ton of neutral site games. There's going to be teams that play back to back to back and some of these stacked up tournaments. So just paying attention, I think, is big.
Yeah, particularly paying attention on sides. That this time of the year, there's some injuries and some setbacks and things, especially even on the bigger teams where guys are, maybe dinged up a little bit. They'll sit them out for a game. A lot of these teams, especially if you look at a place like the Big Ten, where Michigan kind of has a wrap on it. We just find out that Ayo Dosunmu today broke his nose against Michigan State, and now he's going to wear a mask. They don't know if he's going to be in or out, and I don't want to say they have no incentive, but playing a team like Nebraska, where even without Dosunmu, who's one of the best players in college basketball, especially from an individual standpoint, probably not a lot of incentive to play him, because they'll still be 12-point favorites without him, So there's situations like that where you have to pay attention, where it does get tougher when you're playing on a side. Like last night, if you're trying to play on Vanderbilt or somebody like that. Now, they did play Tennessee, who's a good team, but Vanderbilt's right before the game, their two best scorers are out. They just announce them out with like strange injuries. So this time of the year it may not affect the total as much, although those are like two of their best scorers, on a team, and that's a rare instance. But for college basketball sides particularly, you have to be careful as to what you're betting into, and just make sure that these guys are playing, but they also have an incentive to play. Like I said, Michigan State wants to be the number one seed, but so many of these teams like Iowa or Illinois or whomever are so packed in that it's like, well, we're not going to be number one, and from here on out, let's just make sure we're healthy going into the tournament.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that too, especially some of these teams that are just top ass team, or and we saw that last night too. There is some jockeying around from the top of the top, which is not where I'm making my bets anyway. But like Alabama had not an outside shot, I'd say like a 50-50 shot at a 1 seed. If they ended up having, and then they just get, they got kind of beat up last night. It didn't look good at times, especially in the second half. So, there is still stuff to play for some of these top teams, especially when, this not only seeding for the SEC tournament, but the big boy tournament. So I did, I don't know if you played anything today. I don't have much to say about this. Green Bay, this is a Horizon League game. I played the Phoenix -5. I think it's mostly available at 5 right now. This is all I'm going to be on today. It's mostly just an IPFW fade. It is a home game. That is the opening round of a conference tournament. I'll have my outrights on that soon, but spoiler alert for the blog, It will not be. I will not be taking an IPFW outright in the Horizon League at like 200 to 100. So, yeah. I mean, do you kind of lean more towards totals this time of year then?
I lean more towards totals in general. Probably 80-85% of my plays are totals. I can actually bring up my sheet now and see how many sides I actually played in college basketball. It's quite low. And the reason for that is just because they are so much, weaker in terms of market efficiency. I mean, we know how we can very simply rank teams. I mean, KenPom is kind of ruining it for all of us in that regard. And I think the totals, and you can see this in the movement, right? They move 6 or 7 points sometimes. So that's an easy way to gauge how tough the market is. Now, you're going to get less down and maybe make less money. But I would imagine most people watching this, most people that are going to see this, and most people in the world aren't betting up to limits even when they are $250 or $500. So the easiest way to gauge something like this, monitor the market for a week and see how much these things move open to close, and that'll tell you what the weakest markets are. You're not going to see that much movement on sides. I mean, it's certainly not as difficult as an NBA side, or an NFL side or something like that. But totals to me are where is where it's at from a money making perspective. I played 36 totals this year, 36 sides and 236 total. So whatever that works out to be, somewhere around 15% or 12% or something like that. That's pretty normal season for me.
So you're just taking the easy way out, and I got it.
I'm just taking the value where it sits. And I could play higher, like a lower threshold in my model. It's where I'm playing, more and more games. But that creates a situation where right now I'm going to have to do so much research in the morning to figure out, okay, this guy's going to play, or this guy's dinged up, or Ian DeSumo has to wear a face mask now. Like there's a lot going on, especially this time of the year, that I would rather just not deal with. So, totals are easier.
And I think that goes, Alex too. You probably say to this or speak to this, and you bet sides. You're certainly not having that sort of ratio, like 15% sides, but I feel like
65-35, 60-40.
I still think even in the NBA and any market, I mean, just go look at, and if you've never bet $50,000 on an NFL side on Bookmaker, I haven't certainly, but like you don't, sometimes you don't realize the difference in limits if you're never doing that. But on like an NFL Sunday, you can bet $50,000 on Bookmaker on an NFL side, and often the total is 10. Like I believe that's what the split is. Like every sport, and even like Alex said here, he's betting more totals than sides as well. Or totals and sides in the NBA. Totals are going to be a little easier to gauge, a little easier to beat. It's a softer market, and I mean that's even without us saying anything. Just looking at the limits, that's going to tell you. The books think it's harder for them to gauge as well because they're going to take less.
And almost in all cases, you're getting higher VIG as well. So they have more buffer there, and they're lowering your limit. So it's kind of, you can kind of get a gauge on how they feel about the, their position there. And it's just because the variance is so high, and anytime there's uncertainty, it's a lot easier to deal with from, it's better for us and worse for them.
Yeah, exactly. In totals, you can see a total, like you said, move 5, 6, 7, 10 points. And even in a game, you can see it be plus or minus kind of 30 what it is. Spreads are generally a lot tighter, and it makes sense because the spread, you're always kind of going back and forth across zero, whereas a total, you're kind of working your way up and down. And I think a lot of successful people do attack totals. Now, maybe to circle back a little bit, kind of, Frank, you were talking about some adjustments to make and things to look out for in general as you get to conference tourney time and then March Madness. I'm sure we'll ask you this again at some point. Are there any adjustments you kind of make, in terms of, maybe your model or your things that you see from like a pace perspective or something that like change? As I look at the NBA specifically, I find in the playoffs, pace comes way down. Unders start to do better there for a little while. Are there any things like that float up during these conference tournaments or things like that?
Not really. I mean, maybe at the beginning, of the tournament, but things to note with college basketball and just basketball in general, when these teams end up playing back-to-back days, you get tired legs, but it's mostly on defense. We actually start to see a little bit more points. And I agree with you, NBA is the difference is massive in the NBA with the pace going down. A lot of that's because the starters are playing, 40 minutes at times, 42 minutes at times, and they're taking the air out of the ball because they're playing ISO ball because the most important people on the court need to have the ball at most of the time, and they kind of just dribbling it out. So you sort of see that happen. The possessions mean more, so they sort of slow down, which is it's kind of funny because it's not hypothetically the best way to go about it. Like being up against the shot clock all the time is a less efficient way to play basketball. And I'm curious in future years if we'll see that adjustment a little bit. But for college basketball, I don't want to say it's completely opposite. Obviously, the championship games, I would expect the same thing. But in the middle of a conference tournament, teams on their third game in 3 days, you're probably going to see some tired legs on defense, which tends to lead to, it's not much, but 2 points per game, something like that extra from a defensive efficiency standpoint.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
Sense.
I'd have to look up what the spread was, but again, part of my little blogging here, I was looking at how did I do last year and how did the Horizon tournament go last year. The seeding was a little different, but one of the teams they gave all these like triple buys to some of these teams, or the top seeds were given double buys to the semifinals. And in some of these leagues, you're going to have that. So Northern Kentucky last year, who won it, they had to play 2 games. So they beat a tough 3 seed in Green Bay, but then the 4 seed actually upset the 1 seed, which was the team I bet on, the 1 seed. Thank God, I could lose some money there. But the 4 seed had to play the first round, a quarterfinal, the upset in the semifinals, and then go play a team that had only played once. So they'd played their fourth game in like 6 or 7 days in the championship game, whereas the other team had played one time. Like there are going to be goofier situations this time of year like that. And I mean, you'll see that in NBA just with some of the scheduling, and especially this year with any sport with some of this, like, hey, this team has had like 10 days off because somebody had to cancel a game. So I guess maybe we're more prepared for it this year with some of the extended breaks we've seen for teams and how they perform off that.
Yeah, and they haven't performed well. Like, we've seen at least most of these teams, especially the upper end teams that, I've paid attention to. I haven't really noticed if like Portland State coming off a COVID related thing has, been worse off. But teams like Baylor, Michigan, they've at least had one bad half, most teams having one bad game. And coming off the break, especially offensively, has been sort of interesting to see. I saw that with Baylor against Iowa State, one of the worst teams in the conference, maybe the worst team in the conference. Granted, Iowa State played them close in their first matchup, but Iowa State was up like 26-11 at one point against one of the best defenses, probably the best defense in college basketball. I'm curious to see how this will play out with the conference tournaments. Like you said, few years ago, for some reason, all the tournaments went from having like their top 6 or 8 teams in the conference, tournament to just being like, oh, we're going to use everybody, or we're going to put 10 or 12 teams in, which is good because, they're kind of giving some teams in the back end some upwards mobility. Like we saw some like last, a couple of years ago, like a 10 seed in the conference won a tournament somewhere, and then they get into the, the NCAA tournament and lose by 60 to Duke in the first round or whatever the hell it is. But it is kind of a, fun way to spice it up, but the reward has to be something, right? Like Michigan shouldn't have to play against some garbage team and risk injury when they're, title contenders here. They could win the championship, and they've got to play against a team that they'll be 30-point favorites against. It just doesn't make much sense. So now the incentive is, well, we'll just give them, 3 rounds of buys anyway, but now they have to take a week off of games, so it's sort of push and pull there.
And there are a lot of buys now. They'll do that. They'll do double, triple buys for some of the top teams. And truthfully, in the long run, when one of these underdogs wins a smaller conference, like a single bid league anyway, like when they're going to be a 14 seed, it's like, this team's going to be a 22-point dog instead of an 18-point dog. There's not a huge difference once we get to the big tournaments, but it's still fun to track some of those teams that make a fun little run like that, especially like I believe the MVC, it was like when the top seed drops one right away. It was Northern Iowa was out like immediately last year. And again, none of it mattered. I went and looked at my bets from last year. I'm like, God, I forgot how quickly this ended. And I placed a lot more that I just didn't track because they all got returned. But yeah, I only made it through a few conferences and then they started calling things off. So fingers crossed we're cool this year. And obviously fingers crossed for the NBA too. We're getting, San Antonio's done with their shit. And it seems like hopefully going forward, we're going to have less of that. I don't know. Just give the NBA players the vaccine, man. Like just
yeah.
So I don't have to
cancel the All-Star game, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask too. Or, we got our normal all-star break, even if we have a game or not. I mean, you guys can have this conversation. I don't give a shit about NBA, but what sort of adjustments are you treating this year any differently off the all-star break? All things considered, or is just, business as usual?
Business as usual for me. Those comeback games tend to be pretty rough. Those are games, every night in the NBA need to make sure who's playing, who's not, but even more those first couple days back, because some players who play the All-Star game take kind of the next week off. There's a lot of shenanigans. I generally start to come back, frankly, pretty slow from the All-Star break, but things like first half unders always look pretty nice because you have a lot of, trouble those guys working in. So angles like that and things I always look at, but I'm going to be maybe a little more cautious this year because I think given some of the restrictions, people might take a little more advantage of that break than normal. How about you, Frank?
Yeah, I agree. We've seen the games back be really rough. I tend to just skip the first game or two out of the break. I mean, I'm not a very high volume NBA, better to begin with. But you're right. Those first games out are always really rough. It's guys getting back in the swing of things. And like I said, we've seen this with college basketball. They come back after 2 weeks off or something like that in the first half, at least the first half. Usually a whole game is pretty rough for these guys. Not that surprising. We've seen this in other sports, hockey, when teams are like more than 3 days off and have a home game because they're at home relaxing with the family as opposed to traveling and being in the swing of things. Those teams tend to struggle. We've seen this play out in a lot of different sports coming back from long layoffs. So it's different, I guess, when every team is doing sort of the same thing. Every team has the long layoff, but you would be safe to assume that the offensive efficiency in those first games back are going to be pretty rough.
Yeah, definitely.
That's like the only thing I do in the NBA independently is just like Christmas Day unders and day after the All-Star break unders. Just because I'm just a public donkey in the NBA and I don't understand it. I just like the playoffs. Like, can we just get to the playoffs? So, all right. Well, I know, Frank, you have stuff to do at noon here. You got to do a show. So we'll let you get going. But where can people find your stuff? What are you doing? What's going on in Frank's life right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. EliteSportsBetting.com. I'll have all my plays up there every morning, somewhere between 8 and 10 a.m. whenever I feel like getting around to it. And we have show, like Andy said, coming up at noon, lunch money, completely free. Almost everything we do these days is free and live and all of that good stuff, just like the show you're watching now. You can check us out over there. It's all on Periscope and, all of that good stuff. So, we'll talk about the games pretty in-depthly over the next, half hour or so. So, between NBA and college basketball, fortunately, not much else going on right now until we get baseball season back and we'll have NBA and baseball and the end of the tournament, I suppose, all running in together. So pretty exciting time for the summer. The last 2 summers, we've actually had sports as opposed to just like watching golf on Sundays. So,
Who wins the tournament down in Mexico that's in Florida?
I took Xander again. He keeps finishing second, which is kind of making me nervous.
Got to bet him to place.
Yeah, you can take some top fives, but Harris English 75-1 out there earlier this week, and I think he's still 60-1. So we haven't seen that number in a long time for him, and he frankly shouldn't be that high. And
he has a win. I mean, he has a win
this year.
And I did end up betting him first round leader. So again, I'll get you going here. Thanks a lot, Frank, and we'll catch you again. Good luck good luck with all your basketball and golf and baseball and hockey even.
Thanks, man.
Sorry you guys didn't get the Vegas Knights partnership.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Maybe next time.
Throw your hat in the ring next time. So that is what is it? Is it all just one word? At Real Frank Brank.
That's it.
He's too cool for
blank with an R. So,
yep.
All right.
Thanks,
guys. Frank. We'll catch you again. All right. We have one more. We have one more play. You know what? We didn't get to.
That's right. I didn't touch on my Wizards in the National Association of Basketball. They didn't put the oven there. I kind of put that in there. I like it. The Wizards +7. Pretty quickly here, I have this line closer to 4.5 or 5, which is what it closed at when they played in Washington the other day. Denver comes back. They are home, so you want to give them a little bit of advantage. They are in altitude. That is one of the few teams with a home court advantage. But the roster has a few more injuries. Gary Harris is not going to play tonight. Paul Millsap looks like he's going to be out. Washington continues to get better and is just a tough team night in and night out, closing a lot of games at the end. A couple nice wins for them even here. So happy to grab the Wizards plus the points tonight.
All right. I didn't even make slides because we didn't have that many plays today, but we could just recap with the cute little banners, and I'll say it again for the people in the back. Green Bay of the college basketball ranks in the Horizon League opening round tonight at about 7 Central, 8 Eastern, I'm guessing. Most of those games are tonight. They're all tonight. One's a little earlier. Home game hosting the IPFW Mastodons, a team I like to fade. You just heard it now, Washington Wizards or Wizards. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. +7 in the association. And overnight tennis, Coco Gauff or Corey,
train rolling.
she is, as she's known, and Benchik over 2.5 sets +145, a nice plus money price that is cashed 3 matches in a row for her. So let's go. We'll catch you guys tomorrow with another guest.